Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to another edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. This evening, we're going to be looking at our system of education, especially after a collective of our PhD holders in Cameroon sent out a note to the President of the Republic asking for their recruitment and threatening to engage a strike action if they were not recruited. So we're going to be looking at the real substance of our PhDs in Cameroon and why we think that our government has the obligation to recruit them after the completion of their course. We also are going to be looking at what happened in Japan in 2015, to be more precise, where some faculties were asked to shut their doors in Japan because the government considered that they were wasteful and not useful to the needs of the Japanese. So we're asking the question whether it is time for the Cameroon government to also have a rethink on some of the programs that are being offered in our university, state and private, and looking at what students should study in context of the needs of Cameroon and Africa. We are discussing this with our panelists who are in the house. Dr. Micheal Ndimancho. He's a lecturer in some universities across Cameroon. We are glad to have you with us, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Liu, and I'm happy to take part in the discussion of this very, very sensitive topic. And of course, it cuts across. It is not just about the PhDs, it's also about other qualifications in any academic milieu. I think that all of us need to be informed. We need to know exactly why we do trainings. You don't do trainings depending on other people. You do training first and foremost for yourself and depending on your plan, your future plan, life plan, and all of those. So I think that is very, very important to take part in this interactive discussion, which of course will help a lot of Cameroonians who are supposed to be jobless, and of course who after this program may have a rethink about waiting for someone whom no one can see.
We also in the company of Ndiwum Emmanuel, who is also a very core member of Cameroon Civil Society. We're glad to have you.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Leo. Good evening to all the viewers of this program, and I'm happy to be here tonight. I remember the last time I was here, I made a prophecy that has come to pass. I told you that, I know we are not talking about politics today, but I told you the last time I was here that the mighty CPDM was going to grasp all the 70 senatorial seats across Cameroon. And of course, it came to pass with the declaration this today. So I want to congratulate all the newly appointed or elected senators who should be going into their retirement home to enjoy the fruits of retirement. Thank you for inviting me.
We also in the company of Tah Mai Jarvis with us this evening. Good evening, Jarvis. We're glad to have you.
Good evening, Mr. Kum. Good evening to those who are watching us from different parts of the world. It is a day we are talking about education, and education is a fundamental pillar of every society. And this topic of today resonates in me what Professor Bernard Fallon wrote in one of his books titled The Genuine Intellectual, in which in one of his books titled The Genuine Intellectual, Professor Bernard Fallon mentioned the fact that most of our institutions, our professional institutions, are glorified secondary schools. And so in the course of the program, we shall be looking at, I will be basing my argument on two things, the argument of Professor Bernard Fallon and another argument of Charles Dickens in a book published in 1859 titled A Tale of Two Cities.
A Tale of Two Cities. We also are going to be expecting the arrival into our studios of our permanent consultant, Apostle Ambe Valentine Gua. Maybe he's caught in traffic, but we pray he beats traffic to join us and be part of today's edition of the program. Yes, to think that PhDs are job seekers today, Dr. Micheal Ndimancho, are you surprised? Are you taken aback that 2 years ago, we saw them gather in Yaoundé protesting, asking for their recruitment in universities as teachers. And today they are threatening to stage a strike action if the government failed to recruit them.
Well, it's a little bit complicated because, you know, when we say PhDs, we also want to distinguish the fields in which people gain their knowledge. PhDs in what? Is it in science, PhD in social science, and all of those? So it is not the same thing.
Whatever the case, they are PhDs, which means that they are at the apex of studies at whatever level.
Yeah, Mr. Yu, I'm coming to that. It's a complicated issue. You know, there are some courses that individually you may not immediately reap from there. I want to take the case of social sciences, whereby when you study to a certain level in social sciences, the immediate thing that you have to do to earn money is writing, publishing. You publish books and you expect revenue, expect people to buy the books and read, and then that gives you some revenue. But then the situation of Cameroon is very, very different, that if you write books and write as many as you want, and they may just get maybe dilapidated in the bookshops because people don't read. Now, I want to give an example. I was talking to students the other day, and precisely linguistic students, and I said, in Cameroon, I would really love to see somebody carry out a research, a PhD thesis on greetings. And I want someone to compare the greetings in Cameroon and Africa in general to the greetings from the West or America. And I said, in Africa or in Cameroon in particular, when you greet, you are asking a question. But in Europe and America, when you greet, it is a wish. You are wishing somebody. Now, just think about your own mother tongue. Now, take an example of somebody who has carried out a research in greetings, ways of greeting in Africa and in Europe. And at the end of it all, he defends his PhD.
On greetings?
On greetings, of course, which is a very, very important topic. It doesn't just end there. Greetings means that what? What does this reveal? This reveals the two kinds of cultures. The capitalist culture and the communal culture that we have in Africa. It means that what? When a European greets you, he's wishing you because he doesn't want to care to know how you feel. But when an African greets you, he wants to know, for example, if he says you good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all those are questions. Think about in your language. He wants to know how you are feeling, means that what does that portray? It portrays that concern that an African has for a neighbor. Now, imagine that somebody carries out a research on this, and then tomorrow he has his PhD.
In greetings.
In greetings, of course, which is a perfect, which is a perfect topic. That shows what? That he has carried out a research for the country and for the continent. That PhD thesis is for the country and for the continent, and not particularly for himself, because he cannot immediately reap from that research. What happens now? What he expects is also that the government also should be able to come to his aid, because he has helped the government to be able to portray that issue of culture, and it is going to help in research. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is what is the PhD is a journey, to recollect wisdom and build our mental muscles, and then develop our logical thinking. Now, I want to still take an example of that person of that nature. That in that way, yes, the government has the right to come to his assistance. But when you look at the raison d'etre of a PhD, of a thesis that you have defended, you are not just defending a PhD on that particular topic, but then the PhD helps you to think logically, to think out of the box. A PhD helps you what? To improve your communication, motivation, and leadership skills. It means that what? You are not supposed, after gaining all this, to come back to the government and ask the government to assist you. It means that that PhD have to help you to manage your time and solve problems. The PhD helps you in this light to be able to invent. And that is why somebody said, in Africa, we were taught to remember and not to innovate. This is what is happening in Africa. And that is the line that most students who go to PhD are longing for. They are taught to remember and not to innovate. What do I mean? That, you know, when you're growing, even in primary school, they will bring you an insect and ask you to name the parts of the insect. What were they doing? I mean, and that was so systematic of the European, the syllabus that they brought down to us, that you spend your time in the exam, they ask you, name the parts of an insect, name the parts of this. Or they say, who discovered the sea route to India? Or who discovered the river Wuri? And you're asking yourself, somebody said the Portuguese discovered the river Wuri as if the Douala people were not here and they didn't know the river Wuri existed. So you see that this is the way they turn us around. They didn't teach us to innovate, to invent, to create. They taught us to remember so that we do not go above them. And I'm coming to, just after the 1960s, when the African nations started having independence, you know, at that particular point of time, they were interested about their citizens reading, learning to read and write, and that was just all. They were learning to read, and so that most of the jobs, there was nothing like going to this way. Most of the job was on the job training.
Yeah, you are talking about 1960s. We are in 20.
Exactly, I'm coming from there.
People are saying that we want to strike because we want.
I'm coming from, but do you know that we are still using the syllabus of the 1960s?
Are you a PhD holder?
God, of course I am. But then, different from...
Yeah. Are you a PhD holder? Are you saying that, were you told, did the white man tell you to study what you studied?
Listen, I may choose a topic.
Did the white man...
And that is why I want to tell, because I'm here, I want to tell you exactly how it functions.
Yes.
I choose my topic to research, to study. But the methodology is universal. And who gave the methodology on how to... Do you know that you don't invent your own methodology in your PhD thesis? You don't invent it. It is universal. Yeah, and it is taken from somebody. And when you start with methodology, you start looking at people like, especially when it comes to critical thinking.
So why are you not going to government to recruit you? Why are you not protesting?
I'm coming to that, Mr. Leo. You are too fast with the question.
Not for 30 minutes.
It's not for 30 minutes. We want to unveil something. That is what I'm saying, that I've given the different types of people who have defended that, and I've said, when you reach this level, you have reached a level of thinking, of logical thinking. It means that what? You become a leader. And becoming a leader means that what? You should learn to create, to invent, and to be self-sustainable.
Yeah, because you said in the beginning that when after obtaining the PhD, you need to read. Are you getting a PhD to solve societal problems, or to be compensated for getting...
I just talked about somebody who is talking on language. Normally, there's what we call the research question in research. Meaning that what? Any researcher seeks to answer a question that perhaps no other person has answered. That is why you even do what we call literature review, because you want to look at what other people have worked on. And before you go now to answer your own research question, and means that every research question must bring a solution in life. And I just said that there are some solutions that, or some thesis that you write, that you may not immediately read from them. But I'm blaming those who come out and think that the government should help them to read from them, because when you defend a PhD, your knowledge is vast. It means that what? You are taught to be a leader and to think logically and to create and invent.
Ndiwum, I want you and Jarvis to look at this. PhD theses are defended almost every year in Cameroon, thousands of them out there. Do these PhDs actually think about how their researches or their thesis could be implemented to find solutions to the problems of our communities? Do they really go back to say, I worked on this is what the community is facing, and I'm working to see how to fix it? Do they even go back to what they researched on, or are simply interested on what to do to put bread and water on the table?
The first thing is that we should be able to create this awareness that there is an academic PhD and there is a professional PhD, and to think that PhD could strictly be considered as an opportunity for logical thinking without making words or without creating employment, I see there is a vacuum in that point. Because what the question you are asking, if honestly you look at them, because we have, you and I, we have most of them who are our friends. If you even see the lifestyle, their presentation in public, their social presentation, it warrants you to keep asking questions whether these people actually went through this PhD or not. You will also bear with me that the question you are asking, if these people in the society reflect the thesis they defend, the answer is no.
Do they go back to see that?
Yes. Yeah, because no, the answer is no. The answer is no, because most of them, and even to add to the, including what Dr. Ndimancho was saying, it ends in theory. It ends in theory. We don't see anybody, or let's say 99% of them, are unable to provide practical solutions to societal problems that deserves immediate solution. And I also think we have gone past the era of thinking that because the white man led us into that educational system of teaching us only how to read and write, and 60-something years down the line after our independence, discovering and understanding our environment, and we are not able to adapt or to readapt the present educational system to the realities of our environment, the blame should be taken from the white man and shifted back to us ourselves. We have curriculum designers in Cameroon. If I have to do feasibility studies in Fundong, I don't need to go and take somebody from America to come and do it. If I had to carry on studies on climate, let's say a climatologist or a meteorologist in Cameroon, I am better placed to carry out such research. That is where I will now bring in the factor of the government, because all this boils down to the fact that if the white man taught us how to read and write, and we discovered that we had many fertile soils in Cameroon, we have agricultural schools, our government would have made an effort to empower these professional schools, so that when you are leaving a professional school, if at all one exists, you are able to put into practice, not to recite. But the reverse is true, because when you go to such schools, those schools are not even, when you go to such schools, the schools are not even equipped with the schools are not even equipped with the necessary material. You will also discover that most of these people who are crying for as PhD holders, if they are not recruited, they will go on street. The fault can be shared to what they choose to offer in schools, from secondary, university, up to that PhD level, between them and the government. Because at one point you discover that the government has its own fault. If our education, if our educational system was skill-based or skill-oriented, before somebody leaves the university, he would have already known that this is what I am supposed to do with my hands. And that would have encouraged more and more people to rather go in for professional PhD rather than academic PhD. Because this academic PhD warrants that those people finally turns back to the classrooms as lecturers. Whereas somebody who had advanced level went to the agri institution in Bamili, graduated, and is having a PhD in that domain, an agronomist, can be able to set up a farm, which in turn will not only favor him as an individual, will even create an opportunity for people to be recruited. Just imagine that in this same country we are talking about, we have PhD holders in MBA, whether they call it MBA, they don't own a shop somewhere.
Masters in business.
Yes, and they don't own. Yeah, they don't own a shop anywhere. You have PhD holders in chemistry who cannot detonate a bomb. Then you discover that in that domain we can talk about our government, because just look at the local Amber boys who are detonating locally made improvises, which means if our government actually needed to make its educational system professional, this problem of people having to defend thesis and come out and then start going on the street, hanging on the neck of the government asking for recruitment would have been solved. So I don't think what they actually carry out their thesis on is what they sit back and reflect in the society. If not, they would have been an asset to us, not a liability. Because many of them now, as we speak, even in their family ranks, remain liabilities.
Now, Tah Mai Jarvis, you have interacted with many PhDs in our communities. Are they seen as solution providers to our communities, or they're seen like any other person who has just studied to a greater extent?
Normally, the importance of a PhD cannot be overemphasized in a society, because they play a key role in strategic thinking and policy formulation as far as a nation and growth of a community is concerned. We are just a bit concerned now in the various speciality, as Dr. Micheal Ndimancho rightly put it, in terms of what they study as PhD. First of all, I want to be differ with Dr. Micheal Ndimancho on what he said. They gave us. The day here simply means that the white man gave us. No. We are the ones who are responsible for the curriculum that we have in Africa. For 60 years or far too long, we have still been doing copying and pasting and expecting the same result. We call that cultural entropy. Cultural entropy is a situation where you do one thing over and over again and you expect different results. John Henry Clark, who is a famous Pan-African African-American lecturer in the United States, made mention in one of his books where he said throughout history, when the African continent and nations across Africa, when they got their independence, they mimic their structures from their colonial masters. And he said none of them cared to examine the structures of the colonial masters to put into context their own culture. And he said in his book that you cannot mimic a culture of a colonial master and you grow or you develop. In such a way, he summarized it by saying that throughout history, no civilization has known redevelopment in the language of another. And that's why you see, since 60 years independent, we are still learning things that are not relevant. No, not really relevant, but things that cannot actually advance the development of our country. If you look at the Western nations, the policy they put in place are policies because they have already attained a certain level of development, growth, and health. But come to Cameroon and Africa, let's ask ourselves some basics. What are our PhD focus on? First, let's start with the foundation. Mr. Kum, before you do PhD, you must have had or do a master's degree. And before you do a master's degree, there is a criteria, and Dr. Micheal will agree with me here, that before you do a master's degree, you must have years of working experience, at least 2 years of working experience. These 2 years of working experience, you are coming to solve a particular problem as a master's student, a problem that you have identified in a society in line with what you have been working on. Means that you must have a job and you must have 2 years of working experience. But let us look at the current university situation in our country. If a BSc child finishes today, graduate BSc, and the next 2 months they launches the PhD, the masters. He takes a masters without working experience, and after 2 years with the masters, he immediately enroll into a PhD. And you ask yourself, what problem is this fellow coming to solve? This fellow will solve something that the professors have either hinted that take work on this topic, and which is theoretical. And let us also look at the ground in which our educational process or is being formulated. Now, start from the basic of our secondary schools. What are the curriculum-based structure? We don't have competent-based approach, and when you don't have competent-based approach, when you miss it at the basic level, you will miss it at the apex level. That is why I'm saying here that the PhD that we have is not like they are not important or they are liability, but they don't actually solve our problem that we have. They can solve the problem of the West, because like Dr. Micheal Ndimancho was talking about greetings in the West, in America, that is a good thesis, because they don't have hunger crisis, they don't have war, they don't have underdevelopment, they don't have a poor infrastructural development, they don't have cultural problems. We have all these problems. We have wars, we have conflict, we have underdevelopment. So what are the nature of PhD that we need? We need PhD that can address our real-time problems, not PhD that can come and tell us to focus on entertainment. That's why you see in Cameroon and in Africa and in some parts of Africa, the The level of culture, people don't pay more emphasis on culture because, like, if you look at Maslow's theory, you must start first with what people need to eat. You first start with your needs, your psychological need. Now, if you look at what we are facing in Cameroon as far as this PhD level is concerned, why I think that we need a different orientation is not that they are not important. We need a different orientation, and it should interest you to know, Mr. Kum. I for one reason I support them, because the level in which you attain PhD in this country is different. Remember that no private university, as we speak, has a power to coordinate a PhD program until a state university, which means that the issue of state PhD is a state affair, not a private affair. A private university can give you a master's degree. You can do a master's degree in a private university, but you cannot do a PhD in a private university, which means that the state take ownership of your PhD level. Thus, the state should take ownership of your recruitment, except the state diversify the process.
What do you mean when you say the state provides opportunities for persons to read PhDs? So they should take steps to recruit.
In one way, they should. Because
but what message are you giving? Because when you look at what a PhD is worth and what the state pays, you think that the salary that comes from the state actually befits the knowledge that these guys have? Should a PhD not seek to work in this?
Of course they should. Yeah. From my line.
What message are you giving out there?
From the first foundation I laid, I stated that we should reorientate our PhD, and then I came that to a certain.
But when you say the state should recruit, how much does the state pay a PhD?
Yes, this is why I'm saying the state should recruit. I'm saying that one is one of. Like, I'm not totally casting the blame out of the state. I'm just coming here that in one way I look at it, why they think the state should recruit them, because of the formation process, because the state takes ownership of their training. The state thinks that it is only state university that should give you, or you should do a PhD in a state university, because private university, they may come up with different curriculum. Private university may have a competent based approach. If you look at the master's level of some private university, their curriculum is a bit different, which gives you the ability where you cannot do things that doesn't give you job. If you look at some of these private universities.
No, in which country do we have the state recruiting every PhD?
No, I'm focusing on the training. Other countries, private universities have the ability to train you as a PhD holder, whereby they can better guide you to know what you can do that can give you jobs. We have a lot of private universities in Cameroon at the level of masters that gives you a training that train job creators, not job seekers. But in the PhD level, they don't have that ability. They don't even have ownership and control. Now, it's a state that comes in their state university. And if you look at the curriculum of state university, it is not what Cameroon actually needs right now. What Cameroon needs right now are PhD holders that can solve real-time problems in terms of infrastructural development, medical situation.
Where did you do your own PhD? Was it not in Cameroon?
I was here in the University of Douala.
State.
So did the state, when he says the state is responsible for your training, did the state train you to come and work with the government?
No, I understand what I mean. You know that what we pay here as fee is insignificant. As a PhD student, you pay 50,000 francs per year. That is nothing. That is purely insignificant.
So it is a state that is helping.
Yes.
Your education.
That means that the state is giving like subvention for your education. I mean, because 50,000 francs abroad, it is insignificant. But then let me come out in this. When I say we have syllabus that are coming from abroad, and yes, Tah Jarvis came in, and it's important. But I see that much more. Tah Mai Jarvis is talking about a wish, because all of us are wishing that we should have all of these things emanate here in Cameroon. But it is food and environment. But in the present situation, I want to assure you, as somebody who's in the field, that that is not what is happening. That is very, very important to note. And secondly, the issue of in Cameroon, there is no training before you do your masters. When you finish your bachelor, you can get directly into your master studies. Now, but where you have on the job training, what I call working experience, is when you are doing your PhD. Because doing your PhD in Europe, you receive stipend, what you call stipend. You receive scholarship and all of those things. Because the state, helps you. And during this period, you concentrate on doing your research. And as you are doing your research, we consider that as working experience. So that when you finish defending your thesis, you come out now like somebody who has been working for the number of, at least you need some 5 years, to get like somebody who has been working. That is what happened. I mean, I want to talk about like what Mr. Ndiwum talk about, like professional, PhD and academic. I mean, in the world of research, we don't even look, when it comes to thesis, there's nothing like professional and academic. In the world of research, you have a thesis, you have a research that you do to defend your thesis, and all the methodology is the same, because whether you are doing in a professional or in a general education, when you reach your PhD level, what you do, you take a particular subject which you want to be a master of that sort of, means that what? You become an expert. I want to give an example. You look like Hôpital General. Hôpital General is a reference hospital that is supposed to only serve cases that are referred to because they are like PhDs there. So when it is above any other hospital in Cameroon or in Douala, you send to Hôpital General. That is how the PhD academic PhDs are. That you are an expert in the field. When it comes to referring or researching on this particular thing, many people quote you, especially like the books that you have written. They said Ndimancho, of course I've written and people are quoting me. They say Ndimancho 2002. I mean, and it goes, that is how it goes, because you are an expert in the field. So I think that our wish has always been that we should reflect our environment. Because even going down to your own child in a primary school, when a child is studying sounds, what happens is that they want you to study the sound. I'm talking like Mr. Ndiwum understand very well. And then they use, what example do they use? An apple. They use an apple. Do we grow? I mean, generally when we were growing, we didn't know what an apple was. An apple was something that was even imported in France and brought here. So we are saying that we have to use examples that are around world for people to understand. And that, I mean, when we are talking about engineers, we have engineers in Cameroon. When you have to build a bridge at the Wuri Bridge, you don't go and take engineers from China. And then when you wanted to buy laptops, I mean, for students, you didn't need to go to China to bring those laptops. What you should do is that the best thing that would have done was would have opened a small usine, a factory, a small factory where we can be able to help students to build and to train in some of these things. Because in all, as a peer, and that's what where I was coming to, that when you are a PhD holder, it means that you are somebody who is all round already. Even the things that you are not trained in are things that even you master, because during their training, you are gaining what we call wisdom. Even when that knowledge goes away, because you may forget all of those things that you learn because you have not been practicing, what remains to you is wisdom. And that's the wisdom takes you throughout your PhD program. And that is the wisdom now that takes you to make you go above other people in the society. It means that what? You don't need to go and sit in the Prime Minister's office to cry for a job. That is where I was going to land. And that you really need to respect yourself. That if I sit in the Prime Minister's office, what about somebody who has just completed the first degree? What is he going to do? Or what about somebody who has come from ENS? What is he going to do? And that you use this wisdom with this logical knowledge of heart, with this leadership skill that you have, to be able to do a little thing. If you did agriculture, why not put a small farm behind your house and maybe do a consultancy? Because PhD is about consultancy. That there are many people in Europe who open cabinet. When you do like in social subject whereby you don't have a lot of employment, you open a consulting firm, a consulting cabinet, whereby many people come now to you to ask about if it is that concept, if it is language they ask you, if it is culture they ask you. I mean, you are able to consult, and people leave Europe and come to Africa to do consultation of culture. People leave even Cameroon to go to Europe to consult culture. That is what it's supposed to be. So when you see somebody go and sit and is begging for a job, it means that that's the person who went through that PhD and the PhD did not go through him. Okay. That's exactly what I want to say.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. A PhD holder who is supposed to be a job creator, not a job seeker, so a weak me. A shoe mender has never complained of unemployment, but a PhD holder is complaining of unemployment. This is wonderful. Okay. Greetings, Mr. Liu. And all of you in the studio. Generally, the educational system of the country is not balanced. From primary, secondary to university, our education is not need-based, and people tend to be frustrated after the PhD. If we focus on technological development with real practicals, no one will be a job seeker. I am in Bomenda and went in only to a technical school with a back in woodwork technology, and presently I'm able to work up to 250,000 francs monthly just from what I had in school and other internships somewhere. No one can have a PhD in technical field and be looking for a job. Okay, he's sending me, wow, he's sending me pictures of some of what he has done. I don't know, Eli, I'm forwarding what this guy is doing in Bamenda. When it's ready, let us put it on the screen to see what somebody who went to technical college is doing. And he says that each month he's sure of at least 250,000 francs as CFA. Yes. How do we explain this? Is it that there are no side jobs that PhD holders can do, and when they say government must recruit them to do what? To work in what departments?
Mr. Leo, Dr. Ndimancho Michael said something there, that PhD also entails that you have harvested a lot of wisdom. From his part, I know he's a very successful man, but he should not limit it to his lifestyle. The fact that you succeeded in that domain, you and I know people who have PhDs and they're not successful. They don't eat wisdom, Dr. Ndimancho. Wisdom do not put food in your except you are telling us that they should have used another way of wisdom to ask the government to give them jobs. And Mr. Leo, to be sincere with you, the only job they can be asking the government to give them is to recruit them in the state universities to go back to the classrooms. That is all. Because we have not seen any of them come up with a factory somewhere that has started something that they are producing, as that young man who is writing that message to you. These people at times are trained to speak their very big grammar, and after that grammar they beg a bottle of beer, they drink, and it ends, and they are respected as such, as PhD holder. That was in those days. Today, people in the community respect those who are solution oriented, not those who carry certificates to come. Even in the concept of Europe, like a friend told me in America who was teaching with us here, they immediately he arrived there, they asked you, what can you do? They did not ask him his highest qualification. It is this idea of qualification that has created a lot of unemployed youth in Cameroon, who all think that I want to go and get a PhD because I must go to ENS, I must go to NSET, I must work with the government. That is a poor man's mindset, and it's a syndrome that has eaten deep into the fabric of Cameroonian youth and has made many of them to become very lazy, because everybody thinks of going into a public school through a public concours where they can easily bribe. They come out, they sit in an office, and you see that it is this mindset that has made many people. When you look at our ministers in the government, you see that 99% of them are embezzlers. Why? As a government worker, you are not supposed to base your mind only on the income that comes from the government. You should have a side job that can produce. Should have a side job that can recruit a few people around. Now, when you base all your attention on what the government is giving you, tell me how you will not become an embezzler. If you people will all bear with me that people who have provided solutions in this country were never PhD. Kaji Defoso was never a PhD holder, but he will remain in history in this country as one of the people who created avenues for employment. We have Alaji Dampolo, we have the Focus and the rest, whom have taught us that what you do practically is more than just going after a certificate.
Let's get these pictures from Mr. They call him Nzbenat. Nzbenat is in Bamenda. He says he has a back in woodwork, and this is what he is doing in Bamenda, and provides this. Okay, that is Mr. Nzbenat, who just wrote and sent these pictures from Bamenda. These are some of his productions. He manufactures chairs out there in Bamenda, Northwest Regional Capital, Mr. Nzbenat. Now, we are talking about PhDs, guys who have studied to the highest level. We are living in a community. Let us be. We are talking in context here. What do we need? guys like this, Bernard, who is sure of it, at least 250,000 francs a month and taking care of himself, his family, and those back home. Oh, I don't know. PhDs. This guy has not gone to the highest level. Yes, he's not bringing pressure. He's not bringing pressure on his family to look for something for him. He's not bringing pressure on the government. With the back, this is what he's doing.
You see that already he's solving a very big societal problem. People can gain comfort from the chairs he's producing. People can get comfort from the beds he's producing, and you see that from time to time, as that little industry grows, he will need more people who have the practical skills. So what we are saying here, Mr. Leo, is that instead of blaming the government for not giving us a good educational system, we had already identified the problem, that the weakness of our educational system. Identify it is already halfway solving it. Which means if I were to send Ndiwum Kelin or Kela to go and read literature and have PhD, who will come back and ask me to pay ENS for him or look for a job from the government, I would rather prefer that she goes to St. Marie Goretti in Ginicom, where I know that knitting, artistic education is done there effectively, so that she does something which is hands on deck. Not only reading, recitation, and then at the end of the day, you see that this young man is able to be a solution giver to his immediate community than being a liability.
Okay, I would really put all the blames directly on the government, because from the primary, most African countries have failed. Let not go up to the top and forget the very base. What makes the West more stronger is the fact that they concentrate more on the base, which is the primary level. So going up, you should already be able to have a direction, and not only to get to the university and start moving from place to place with files. Please let the government go back and start from the primary school and forget about university for now. Peter Forza writing there. Peter Forza LMG writing there. Greetings, Mr. Leo. Good program, bros. What type of PhD are they having, and what? I know PhD holders are job creators, not going behind the government. It's better for them to borrow from the government and create companies rather than searching for government jobs. For me, the PhD holders in Cameroon are failures. Fred Fang, writing there from Mutengene. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I hail you for the job you are doing. The program today sent me to recall late Simon Quinty, who was teachers' trade union leader. He cried on a radio program called Morning Safari because the government could not provide Anglophones with technical schools. Today, PhD holders are threatening to protest. What a shame. Unike Nelson, writing from Bamising. Oh, Bamising before Ndop. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. I am very sorry for the PhD holders in Cameroon. A PhD holder in electrical engineering is still buying common bulb, while a primary school child in China produces bulb. What a shame. Masango Manfred is writing from Kumba. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Abang Anang, writing from Yaoundé. Nice and educative program. Good evening to you, my brother Anang. Good evening, sir. Unskilled workers are the richest people nowadays. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It was such a great program. Congratulations for the marvelous job you are doing, sir. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, when we acquire this doctorate in whatever domain or field, like he was saying that one person did the PhD in was it salutations, but now don't we even at the level of the masters, we are talking about a global economy where we know what is selling, we know the needs of a community. If you were coming from Cambe, you were coming from say Vuri here, from Tibombari, we already know what is selling. You know what problems exist in our communities at the continental level in Africa or global, intercontinentally, should we not already know where we are going to fit the skills and knowledge we are acquiring from the PhD? Because are we saying that we are blind to the level of PhD not to know that this knowledge that or skill we are acquiring may not necessarily be needed in our communities, that we are now forcing on the government to create jobs even for things that are not needed?
Chinua Achebe, in his book titled Things Fall Apart, also in another book where he actually made mention of the fact that the problems we have in Nigeria, where he was citing Nigeria, which is a global problem in Africa, is leadership. And Chinua Achebe said everything centered across leadership. And if you look at the context of Cameroon, it also centered across leadership. Leadership this time from the perspective of the Ministry of Higher Education. And understand and also note that no private university in Cameroon has the ability to give certificate. So they must pass through a mentor university that gives a curriculum. And now, the problem now is based on the curriculum set aside by the Ministry of Higher Education. That gives Cameroonians the ability to understand that they have the matricule syndromes. The matricule syndrome where every Cameroonian child go to the primary school level. One of the message, the person who sent the message hit the nail on his head, where if you go to primary school, you ask those children, who do you want to become? None of them will tell you they want to become carpenter, bricklayer, this, that. They will tell you they want to become engineers, they want to become this and that. And the nature of the engineering now matters. And you are asking the question about the relevance of these and why are they not solving societal problem in their community. It is very important that before you come to do a master's thesis, you must have an area where you are coming to specialize and you are coming to solve a particular problem. You must have to identify a need in a society, and that's why you are going for that master's program to be a master of that subject, so that when you go back to your community, you will provide solutions to that. And now when you are coming out to do PhD, you are coming out to do PhD now to finally narrow your mind in one of the areas that you actually specialize on in your master's thesis. That is to have a full mastery, because a master, you cannot have one particular area that you have a full mastery, like Dr. Ndimancho was talking about l'Hôpital General. So you can come and look at one of the units of analysis and focus there for your PhD. Then you are coming out to solve now the bigger issue. Now you're a specialist in that. But ironically, it is not the case in Cameroon. Why? Because if we go back to the curriculum that we have, don't give us the ability to focus on the dire need of Cameroonians. And the dire need of Cameroonians is centered on 4 key aspects. First,
okay, we're going to take this short break. Maso is preparing a grand ceremony at the Ewane Multipurpose Sports Complex on the 9th of July 2023. Let's hook up with Abel Bella Samari, communicator with Maso. Hello, Abel.
Hello, welcome to the minute with the mutual assistance and solidarity, Maso. Ahead of the July 9, 2023 raffle draw ceremony that will take place at the Ewane Multipurpose Sports Complex, the Mutual Assistance and Solidarity (MASO) thinks that if we empower Cameroonians with finances, we are going to have a sustainable and an economy that will emerge by 2025. You and I know that we live in a capitalist system where it is very difficult for mutualists and would-be mutualists or even Cameroonians to obtain finances for their different projects. We have Cameroonians who have been bestowed with a lot of wisdom and they have a lot of projects, but they cannot realize this project because of the different finances. The Mutual Assistance and Solidarity believe in our African values of solidarity and assistance, taught it that if we can practice solidarity economy, where we can provide finances to Cameroonians of the small and medium-sized enterprises, those are into petty businesses, for them to be able to realize big projects. And that is why MASO, through its offer of MASO classes, which is without interest, is giving out finances for the mutualists and would-be mutualists to the tune of 250,000 francs CFA, 500,000 francs CFA, and 750,000 francs CFA. If you participate, if you register into the Mutual Assistance and Solidarity, you stand a chance to benefit all the advantages and participate into the raffle draw ceremony that will take place on the July 9, 2023 at the Yaoundé Multipurpose Sports Complex, where you stand a chance to benefit some of these finances for your projects and to enable you empower yourself and come out of the shackle of poverty. The mutual assistance and solidarity also offer master goal, where it is non-refundable. Through a raffle draw ceremony, you stand a chance to win by up to 1 million francs CFA, 2 million francs CFA, 5 million francs CFA, 10 million francs CFA, and even 50 million francs CFA. This will permit you realize your projects, be it in the agricultural sector, be it in the financial sector, and be it so whatever. Even those of the small and medium-sized enterprises are not left out. If you want to register into the mutual assistance, do so and become a member of the mutual assistance and solidarity and benefit all these advantages and move our African economy from a capitalist economy to a solidarity economy, so that together we can emerge by 2035. To register into the mutual assistance and solidarity, just go to any Radar Pro Finance SA agency in your locality. Somebody will help you register into the mutual assistance and solidarity, and there you stand a chance to participate in the raffle draw ceremony that will take place on the 9th of July 2023 at the Yaoundé Multipurpose Sports Complex. Remember that master goal is just 100 francs daily contribution for you to have 26,000 francs yearly contribution by June the 29th, 2023. So if you register into the mutual assistance and solidarity, you stand a chance. Remember that if to register, you equally have some numbers at your disposal, and you can just call 699-442977, 699-442977, or you go to 674-392746, 695-339503. Remember that with MASO, we simply live our African values.
Masu, thank you for seeking to provide assistance to Cameroonians, not only PhD holders. Now, we are looking at the situation. Okay, you did not lie? Okay, go on.
I was concluding by saying that we need to also work on our curriculum. We're in a rapidly changing world. We're in a fast-changing world. And what used to pertain 10 years ago may not pertain now. For example, if you look at our phones that we have Samsung X1, S2, S3, and in the next 5 years, it will change. And also look at when COVID-19 came in, the landscape changed. And we are talking about digital economy. Before now, we're not talking about digital economy. We are now talking of cashless society. Before now, we're not talking about cashless society. Now, if you take someone who studied accountancy in 2015 or 2011, and someone who is doing accountancy now, where we are talking about Bitcoin, cashless economy, we are talking about different method of training. So it has a lot also to do with our curriculum. As time is advancing, there is a dire need for universities to also to adapt to the changing world. If also comes to the level of the sciences too, things are changing at the level of sciences. And there's one thing, Mr. Aliyo, which we must also look at. It is also based on the fact that most of our higher institutions don't do what they say they are doing. For example, you see somebody say, I graduate from chemical engineering, and you ask that person component of producing ordinary whitewash paint. That person will not be able to tell you, but that is someone that studied from chemical engineering. There is an entitlement syndrome in Cameroon, where we believe that when we get job, we are entitled to an employment, that someone must employ us. And that's why we are saying that we should keep away from matricle syndrome. And this matricle syndrome push us to an ABC syndrome, that is accuse, blame, and condemn. When we end up not having job, we accuse the government, we blame the government of the curriculum as we are blaming now, and we condemn the government for not giving us a job. There is also something that the PhD holders need to understand. Going to do PhD, as Dr. Micheal Ndimancho said, it is not to give you a job per se. It is coming to act as an encyclopedia in the community.
Yeah, my question to you is that before settling down on a particular subject, do you consider whether the knowledge is going to be needed in your community or nation?
That's why I'm saying that there's an entitlement syndrome, because normally you are supposed to consider the first criteria before you do a master's degree. You are coming to specialize in a particular problem you have seen in your society to solve. For example, I'm doing a master's, I'm in my final year of my master's, and my thesis is the effect of in-service training on employees' performance. I have seen that that's a need, and that's why I'm coming in now, which means that I've seen there's a problem that there is no the effect of in-service training in some companies. Now you must have a solution, a problem, and I am working. So you must first of all have a job. that you have a work experience, then you enroll in a master's program, and you state why you are coming to solve that problem, and then you have that master, then move now to PhD. PhD now you are narrowing. The master's was on a wide scope. PhD now you narrow the research into a particular specialty. Now the challenge we have with our PhD holders is that many of them don't have a job at the basic level. Many of them don't have the working experience. Many of them just do it because they feel that their colleague says, let's go and do a PhD. It will shock you. Go to university these days. Those who are doing masters, ask their topic. You will be amazed that you cannot give up what you don't have. Most of the professors, even teaching them the PhD level, most of them don't have a job. I take, for example, someone who is teaching digital marketing, a professor teaching digital marketing, but that person does not have a Facebook page teaching digital marketing for a student to go and do digital marketing and to survive. And because he claims that since he has a PhD, he can read and understand and teach you. And that's a problem we have.
Everything ends at the level of theory. That's the first problem of Cameroon.
Okay.
Even if you go back to those schools where they say they are teaching ICT or IT schools, you don't find the equipment there.
Okay, please, we launched a competition for you, our viewers on Prime Art, to tell us which is your best private university. Eli, let's have it there. Just send the votes, and we are going to be counting them. At the end of the month, we will tell you which, according to our viewers, is the best private university in Cameroon. Send your votes, and we'll tally them. Which private university is the best in Cameroon? Good evening, Mr. Leo. What an interesting topic out there. It makes me weep with tears to know that it is only in Cameroon that a PhD holder is being employed by a palm wine tapper to help him tap in his farm. Arrest my case. Mr. Allen, writing from Limbe. Sir, I'm not even sure that Dangote went to school, but he is the richest man in Africa. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and everyone in the studio. Actually, the problem we have in Cameroon today is about the system of education. The government needs to involve career orientation to schools, because most students study what is not necessary in our society. Just imagine studying anthropology, sociology, etc. They will all end up in the classrooms as teachers. We need skills and practicality to move the nation forward. Prince Bile is writing from Germany. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I think the problem all lies in our educational base, because we are not thought to be creative at the base. So the problem of being unemployed will just be a cycle, if not improved upon on the educational system. Venan is writing from Chang. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. Any PhD holder who is relying or depending on the government has a questionable PhD certificate. Derek is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu and all the wonderful panelists. The topic of today is a topical issue. If you look at a comparative study on Japan educational system, which in a period about 20 years under experimentation, experienced only about 10% of their students attain PhD level. Most of the students got employment at the junior and senior secondary level, while integrating only later come back to do a study at work program after having experienced problems in the field of work. This is to say, when you miss skill acquisition at GCE level, you can hardly pick up at the university level. Elvis is writing from Gaundere. Good evening to you, Elvis, and all of you watching from Gaundere. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love the topic of today. The unemployment rate in this country is alarming, because most people go to school with the mentality that they must be employed by the government. Let's change this mentality and embrace technological skills, and then be job creators, not job seekers. I'm Marius, writing from Manjo. Good evening, Mr. Kum Leonard. I am watching you from Isu, Fungom Subdivision, Menchum Division. Good evening to you, my brother, watching from Isu. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Blesius in Kutaba. In training school, you are taught home economics, for example, in theory, but you are expected in the field to teach it practically. So, garbage in, garbage out. The country will keep on producing paper tigers if the curriculum is not changed towards learning by doing. We shouldn't blame the PhD protesters, because they have been trained to be good protesters. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The issue is that the government should create a conducive social and economic environment for scholars to be able to invest their talents stress-free. Basil is writing from Yaoundé. Now, we are looking at the situation of our PhDs and the fact that they want to be recruited. Now, when you look at most of our PhDs in Cameroon, where can they best fit?
Well, you cannot give a general answer.
Where are their services most needed?
Well, in terms of technology, they are needed in technology.
Yes, but when you look at the thousands that are churned out from our schools today, where can they serve?
Mr. Leo, sometimes it's not good to actually pinpoint and specify.
We should not lump all of them.
Yes, I'm saying that a PhD holder has gained skills that are transferable and can apply for jobs out of the academia even. PhD, they have knowledge that is transferable. They can apply out of jobs, out of what they even did. We know that in Africa, we need ICT, technology, and all of those. We need that. But it doesn't mean that we do not need those who did the other fields, because even when we say, I've heard some people say, okay, we have even business tycoons who don't have PhD. But do you know that their businesses are being managed by those who have PhDs? That is very important.
As their employees.
Yeah, their employees means that even those uneducated who own businesses, they need the PhDs to manage their businesses. This is one of the things that we should know. You know, in Africa in general, or in Cameroon in particular, joblessness is caused by people. I mean, you know, people go to school to study, and because they want to depend wholly on the state, what happens is that they waste time and they keep on studying and going. They keep on studying and going and waiting for employment. So people don't have a goal. They don't know what they are looking for. Because one of the principal things that you do when you are going for your PhD stuff is, when you want to do your research, is what we call it motivation. That you must be motivated. Once you are not motivated, you are asked not to take that topic. Yes, it's motivation. And once you have this motivation to research on the topic, know that you are going to provide a solution in a community. I want to give an example, a local example. You know, in Africa, in Cameroon, we set businesses because we want money. But in Europe and in other countries, people set business in a particular area because they want to solve a problem. They want to solve a problem with that particular place. If you come and say and put a provision store here, it's because you have realized that you want to help those in that community. You want to solve a problem of people going to town to buy. That is the first goal. Means that you want to solve a problem in the community. But what happens here in Cameroon? You put a small business because you want to make money. And that is why you find in a street, you have 5 or 10 bars in the same place. What purpose does that serve? It's because you are looking for money. So these are some of the things we have to work on. Now, another thing I want to talk about is, sometimes we may not really put all the blames on those PhDs, because they too have their blames, but there is something I have to talk about. We do not have industries in Cameroon and Africa. There are no industries, there are no laboratories for practicals. People do, normally you are supposed to do 40%, for example, theory, and then 60% practicals. I work in a university where that is practice, where we even have partnership with over 50 companies, whereby when you reach year 1, year 2, you are sent to a company to do practicals, and then you come, and that's how it happens. Sometimes some students, before they are even finishing with their 3rd year or 4th year, we are MBA or whatsoever, they are already gained their employment. So that is one of the things we have. We need to encourage our government, not only, to stay mute and we ridicule these people. Yes, we should ridicule them, but then the government has to take a blame that we should be able to make sure that when we grant authorization to a school, to a university, these universities should have those industries and laboratories to take care of these students. Don't mock at them afterward, because like we say in Latin, nemo dat quod non habet. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot get into the university where you do theory, and then at the end of it all, they expect you, maybe you did chemistry, what they want you to create a small bomb. You cannot do that. You cannot do that magic. And these are some of the things we have to look at. And now, we know about what we call on-the-job training. There are some people even with a bachelor, they are fine because they do what we call on-the-job training. And that's what was happening in the 1960s. In 1960s, we didn't have people who have gone up to PhD, but they were doing perfectly well. We had people who were working perfectly. Our fathers were doing it because they did what we call on-the-job training. Service training is very important. But we have, the world is now developed, but we do not have those avenues where we can be able to send students to do some of these things. So we have to go. Now, there is another way, what we call the PBL. The PBL means problem-based learning.
In most universities now, we have what we call the problem-based learning approach. Meaning that what? You identify a problem and you have to solve that problem before even you are given a pass mark in a UV. You have to solve that problem. I mean, like my university students are creating drones. Of course, they are. They are creating drones. So I think that PBL should be implemented in most of, and it can only be implemented with those universities. They have industry, they have those equipment, they have those laboratory where students can be able to work. So I think that most of these things, we need to address them. So these professional skills are useful. And you know, I always say, you can transfer them, you can use them in other areas, you can use them in the industries. Even when you didn't do chemistry or technology, I think that most PhD students, because they follow a particular research methodology, you can be outstanding anywhere where you find yourself. But going to sit somewhere to cry, that's what I'm actually pity. I have a pity for that. Then you go and sit somewhere. Sometimes you do it and pretend. At least you should pretend. You don't really have to make it openly. That you, and I even saw some medical doctors, they are among them. How can you be, if you open just a small, a small box, just consultation box in your quarter? You talk about capital. The first capital is human capital, and that is what we Africans do not know. The first capital is human capital, but we keep on talking about what? Financial capital, and that is why there are a lot of NGOs in Africa and in Cameroon, because you want to sit in an office, you want to lobby for funds abroad, you want funds to come so that before you start doing something. Most people have been supported because they were already in the field. And then once you are in the field, you write your report, you are supported. And secondly, I think that government should support the PhD, because after your PhD, what you do is you write a project. You ask the government to sponsor, because if those people sitting in a prime ministry and they are saying that they have written their project and they are asking the government to look at their project and support them, I will say that it's tangible. But most often you find people who have nothing to show proof of. They have not published anything. There is nothing that they have to show, but they sit there crying. And they have children. The other year, someone even wanted to drink poison. You ask yourself, but what is all this? What is all this? I think that I still stand on that issue that PhDs are formed integrally with that wisdom that they have, and that they are like chameleons. They can be able to change their color at any time, wherever and however the opportunity comes in up, they change their color and they are able to suit to that opportunity. Okay. Good evening. I am your mother's neighbor and a keen listener of programs of your channel here in the village. In Isu, I am the principal of GHS Zua, currently watching your program. Thank you very much, Prince C, watching all the way from Isu village out there in Fungam subdivision, Menchum division. Good evening to you, Mr. Tu Simon and Henry Zong, all watching from Isu this night. Glad to note that you guys are watching, and so many persons are watching. Eli, can we have what this guy is saying? He says, good evening, Mr. Kum. I'm Ja Primus from Bamising. Ja Primus is trying his hand on something. If it's ready, can we have it on the screen there? He says, good evening, Mr. Kum. My name is Ja Primus from Bamising. I'm a ceramist. I have a diploma in ceramics, and I have been trying to solve and create opportunities for young Cameroonians, though I had to switch to another field. I still believe ceramics industry needs to be developed in Cameroon. I train people on online and offline. I still believe the Ministry of Crafts will give a little bit of attention to this industry. I'm working and researching on how we can improve on the production of ceramics tiles in order to attenuate the level of importation. I think our education should be tilted towards competence-based approach above some of... this is a Cameroonian who is not in Bamenda, he is in Bamising. And when you look at the amount of tiles that are imported into Cameroon, it tells you that, I don't know, so much money is sent out of the country. He is saying that we should start thinking on how to produce our tiles in Cameroon to offset the huge amounts that are taken out of this country. Are this not? Is this not what the PhDs? Is this not the real PhDs we're talking about here?
This is what we call practical PhD, Mr. Liu.
Billions are sent out of the country. We want the billions to stay back here.
And that's capital flight. This is what we call practical PhD. Remember when Cameroon won the bid to host the AFCON 2019, materials to build Olembe Stadium were prefabricated from Italy and transported to Cameroon. All that was done with the coffers, with the money from the coffers of Cameroon. And from what this young man is doing, I think these are the people the government is. We have the Ministry of Vocational Training in this country. I think it is manned by Issa Chiruma Bakari, the former Minister of Communication. And you will bear with me that this ministry has not been delivering anything.
No, we can't on this platform say it has not been delivering. I'm not sure I'm not sure you went there and find out what they have been able to do so far. Yes,
Mr. Leo, I want to tell you that a lot of happenings in this country are because even from the president down to his ministers went through this kind of education that we are condemning here today, and they have not thought it wise to change, to switch to something productive, so it remains unproductive. Even their services have not been able to push Cameroon forward because of the type of education they went through. When you look at what that young man is doing, some time ago there is a young man, I think whether it was still from DOC, who made an artificial helicopter. There's another one who developed a tractor. There is another one who fabricated a caterpillar with planks and some local materials. That was an initiative that if the government of Cameroon meant well for the development of Cameroon, and that if they were ready to change the situation of Cameroonians today, they would have taken these young people, created a center for them, so that that center could easily be transformed as a center for research, so that other youths will be lured to join these youths there. Yet, we saw one or two of them congratulated on TV by the Prime Minister. We are 4 years gone down the lane. We have not seen what has practically happened. We know some that came very close to these ministries. Finally, the government did not support them. So I want to think that is where I cue in with Dr. Ndimancho, that whatever the case, I want to believe that some of these PhD holders are regretting the kind of educational system they went through, and when they turn around and look at the lavish lifestyle that some of the government officials are living, knowing fully well that they in their head have something more than what some of these government officials are having, it pains them. And they think that the only way is to use the hard way so that they can share. I call it fighting to share the national
on our screen we have this other one. Good evening, Mr. Leo. It's Mark. I am in Bamenda. I have a technical advanced level. This is what I have been doing for a field I have been trained in school. Okay, these are what these guys who went to technical education are doing, meeting the square needs of the population, and also making us live up to standard here, because these are some of the things we used to watch guys reflect in the Nigerian film, and because we want to live according to that standard, that was a need that was identified in our society. These guys are readily meeting this need. Thank you for all of those who have shared what they are currently doing, and I bet you they won't be able to. They are meeting the direct needs of themselves and their families, and also training other persons. Now, how do we get our PhDs to understand that when you get a PhD, you should be that shining light. You should give a hope to those who are coming, who are dreaming to become PhDs tomorrow. Because if you go to school and you hope to want to be a doctor tomorrow, to be called Dr. Jarvis, Dr. Ndimancho, Dr. Yes, when you that is your hope. And today you find persons with doctorates threatening to take to the streets. Isn't it demotivating?
demotivating it may sound, yes. I think our council will not go for the PhD because they are already bended. When an iron is already bended, which is cold, it's difficult for you to bend it again. So our council probably is for those who are at the level of their master's thesis and those who are still in the course of their PhD. I talked a while ago that we are in a rapidly changing world, and now we are in a world. Carol Dweck, who brought up a concept of growth mindset. To those who are watching us, can go and read the concept of growth mindset, Carol Dweck. And Carol Dweck talked about the fact that in a society which is rapidly changing, you have to work 10 times harder, and you must have what is known as an added value. All persons or all students in university must have an added value, meaning that added value, these are things that gives you a competitive edge more than the other person and makes you stronger. For example, if you are a journalist, apart of just being a journalist, what else can you do? If you are a teacher, apart of being a teacher, what else can you do? If you go somewhere that they say, okay, we don't have a teaching ability, a teaching opportunity for you, what else can you do? Which is known as that added value. And that is why in the universities that I work in, we always let students to understand that added value is very important. And what we are saying here is that those who are reading PhD is not too late. Those who are doing their masters is not too late. It's not too late in this context. When you are doing your PhD in a particular field, try to get soft skill in another field. And so therefore, other universities have struggled now to rechange the dynamics. I bet you we are experiencing this PhD and now we will not experience it in the next 10 years or in the next 15 years, because the dynamic has changed with the proliferation of private professional higher institutions. All these higher institutions are struggling to make it train their students to be job creators and not job seekers. And if you look at what we are experiencing now, as far as these PhD persons are concerned, is because it's the output of what we had as either the level of the training and also the level of consultancy and also the level of orientation. Somebody talked about orientation, and within the orientation mindset, people were mostly taught about the fact that government job pays more than private job. And so therefore, if you go to everywhere, you see everybody is telling you, I want to work in the government because I think there's job security. What we are saying, as Chinyo Achebe said, that everything about the growth of a country lies on leadership. If the government on its part can diversify the economy, gives the ability for private individuals to be able to receive funds. We have seen in other communities, I don't know if Dr. Ndimancho can agree with me here, in other communities or Western nations, the government actually gives funds to businessmen to do business. But in Cameroon, for you to receive funds, you have to bring land title, put their mother's house as collateral, do everything for a loan of 1 million francs. And you look at even the economy. So what we are saying there is that it is shared responsibility. In as much as we are telling the PhD that they are supposed to have an added value, we are also saying that the government in itself has to play a role, in a policy formulation for economic policy, in the policy formulation for structural policy, also in policy formulation for the content of it. Mr. Kum, look at the PhD. We have Menchun 4. We have not had a lot of PhD research about Menchun 4. Come now to the level of the volcanic eruption in Mount Cameroon. We have Mount Cameroon in itself. We have the flood currently which is occurring in Boya. We have not had PhD, those environmental scientists who are to come to TV and explain to us the topographic nature of Boya, why the flood occurred in Boya, how it should be avoided, how the climatic condition is being affected. If there is a volcanic eruption, possibly those who are in Boya should have this, that. They have not. So it is to tell you that what they are being taught or they are teaching students is agricultural land use pattern in Australia, fishing off the coast of Norway, lumbering off the coast of lumbering in Norway. They are teaching you also to talk about if the developing countries and less developed well and focus on Nida Dam, Manito Dam and Australia. So it tells you nobody is talking about fishing off the coast of Limbe. Let's look at fishing in Limbe. What could be the economic importance of fishing in Limbe? Do you know that Limbe has a dark the dark sandy beach is very low, rare in terms of what we have as futures. A lot of curriculum that we don't teach our students, a lot of programs that we don't put in our curriculum. So what we are saying here is that we need a competent-based approach. And I'm submitting to you that in the next 10 years, you will not have these people crying that they don't have jobs. Because look at the age in which these people are crying for jobs. Count it, you will see that it's 15 years ago. A training they did 15 years ago. So we are telling parents, we are telling promoters of education to change their curriculum to focus on competent-based. What universities are supposed to do, Mr. Liu, is that if a university university has a campus that Professor Bernard Furlong said in his book titled The Journey Intellectual, that any university that does not have a library, that does not have a research facility, that does not have a laboratory, that does not have a practicing center for people to do research is more of a glorified secondary school. And I'm submitting here that we have more glorified secondary schools in our universities, including some state universities that are glorified secondary school. If you doubt me, look at those who have done PhD in physics, look at those who have done PhD in biology, look at those who have done PhD in geology, look at those who have done PhD in the scientific field, which are the fields that we need. Look at those who have even done PhD in structural engineering. Ask me this simple question: how many of them have come up with the production of a bridge? How many of them have come up with the construction of roads? When we need our roads to be constructed, we go to the west. When we need our health to be our health centers, we go to the west. Our ministers are sick, they go to the west. Our ministers want their children to go to school, they send them to the Western education. Come now to our own context to tell you that they themselves have realized there's a fundamental problem in our educational system.
Okay, let us look at our PhD, sir. Terre à terre, a Frenchman would say. We have had COVID-19 in the world and in Cameroon. Dr. Ndimancho, we have PhDs in this domain. Did we see our PhDs actually, away from government, tell us that, okay, this is a collective of PhDs who are now asking for job. This is the collective of PhDs who are telling Cameroonians that this is, because they are the guys who are the apex of, yes, this is what we should do according to what we think. We have seen the Anglophone crisis raging on for 6 years. This is a collective of history PhDs who think that this is what ought to be done to solve this problem. We have had, let's take the case of the flood. There was flood in Boya. 2 days ago, Ewane experienced same. This is a collective of PhDs in geography. We think, you guys, because you are one of them. Because the PhD in Cameroon, it appears people were ordained to teach, to lecture. Are you guys coming on TV that this is a collective, we want to solve this problem, and we have not been given the opportunity? Councils, municipal councils are not patronizing us, yet this is the problem we have profiled. It
is a very, very good question, Mr. Leo. I want to assure you that they have been doing, and personally, I have done as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned. It may not be in a concerted action. I'm talking the collective. They want to protest as a collective of people. Well, it's because sometimes you have made given my own example, but I've never been asking for a job anyway. But I think that some of us do it individually. I'm going to send you a paper I wrote. 2 papers about Boko Haram and the second about the Anglophone crisis. And we do these proposals. Mind you, most of these people, they do these proposals, they're in the ministries. Unless you go to the ministries, you will never say with certainty that they don't do. They do. Most of them, they write. And there is what we call the administrative bottlenecks in some of these things that you cannot penetrate through. You cannot be considered if you are not from a particular circle. So I don't think that the ministries, most of the ministries, they don't take things from people who are not assigned by the government. When it comes to feasibility studies, they hardly take people who are out of their circles. That's what happens. That you say that there's a collective of doctors or whatever. Doctor, you are now playing Nicodemus who went to Jesus in the night. I'm talking about the collective say we want to protest. They did not go to them. They are telling government, and we know. Now, yes. I'm not playing any Nicodemus. You don't want to understand me. Okay. The issue is that you find people who are sitting and they have nothing to eat. There's somebody who wanted to even take poison and drink because he said the children don't have food to eat. So we want them to sit in a collective and go to me and be singing about what already with the research proposal that they have done. PhDs don't have food to eat. Of course. Why are they sitting there? Because they have no food to eat. There's one who wanted to poison herself. All of us saw that. So there are people who don't have what to eat, and you are expecting them to come in a collective and start marching to Yaoundé to ask for. I think that in as much as what you are saying is supposed to hold, that if something is good for the goose, must also be good for the gander. It is also good that if they protest that they don't have jobs, they should also be able to assist the government. But I just mention the fact that assist their communities. Their communities too. When you assist their community, indirectly assisting the government, and the government is who is steal them. So I think that many of them
We live in a community that is a little bit selfish, that people are only fending for themselves. People fend for themselves. And you know, because our society does not have the same reality as that in Europe. So I cannot be comparing our society and the PhDs who that's here in Cameroon with those in Europe. Because in those in Europe, basically food is not their problem. In Europe, food is not their problem. Basic community is not their problem. Social insurance is not their problem. But in Cameroon, all of these basic things are the problems of the PhDs in Cameroon. And it makes it very difficult for them to come out with initiatives to be able to do certain things. I mean, sometimes we need to consider them. But it is true that they have gone through, I mean, they revindicate this. They should also be able to provide solutions to their community. But I think that there are some of them who are doing. We have had a lot of people who have been spotted here and they're doing some of these things. And I think that they have been compensated. I mean, we are not blind to some of those things. But as I said, there are some people who did the PhD and who are not motivated with their subject matter. How do you expect somebody who's not motivated? You came up to be a doctor, and you came up with a doctor because you plagiarize. You know, most of our universities here, most students they plagiarize. It's plagiarism. You know, you want to finish it fast in order to gain a job from the government. And you finish to gain a job from the government, and you are not even competent in the field. What can you propose when you are not competent in the field? I had a case of somebody who was doing ICT, who went to do a research, or went to do how do they call it, internship in a general education school, and you are doing ICT. I mean, so some of these people are not motivated. At the end of the day, you write a project or your thesis is all about plagiarism. There is nothing that has come from you, is that you have borrowed or you have stolen from other writers all over there. So at the end of the day, when you actually have the PhD, I mean, many of them have even revoked. You know that they have revoked some PhDs of some people. That is, I mean, because at the end of the day, they don't show proof of anything. So you don't expect that kind of a person. You don't expect anything from that kind of a person, or any proposal from the community of that kind of a person. Rather, those people are liabilities to the society. They are not assets. And meanwhile, PhDs are supposed to be assets. So, but in Africa, we are forming liabilities, because you find people, somebody who has done, maybe somebody wrote, I mean, on one of your partner TVs, there was a doctor who went and on air said the medical school in Douala, students don't come to school. Students don't come for classes. And at the end of the day, they are awarded degrees. And you know, he was punished. That man is on punishment now at the University of Douala. And he's saying the blatant truth, that students don't even come to class. But at the end of the day, they are awarded degrees. They are awarded thesis. I have a student who said he paid somebody to write his thesis. I mean, it happens. So at the end of the day, don't expect anything from this kind of people. I mean, I run an organization out of my teaching job. It is because I'm motivated to add something to the community. But some people are not motivated. All they want is the government recruitment. They want the matricule number at all costs. It's like matricule syndrome in Cameroon. I mean, as far as that matricule has not come, it is not there. And why do they want that matricule? Because they have understood that we run a state of criminals. That people get there and they only steal. And what happens is that they want to get there to steal. You are even talking about PhD. Talk about those who go to ENAM. You spend 2 million francs or 5 million francs to enter ENAM. And after ENAM, what happens? You want to gain back that money even within 1 year. This is the very thing that goes wrong. It is not just about the PhD, the PhDs. It's also about all of us, that we are supposed to have an impact in our individual communities. It is very, very important. I'm here with you. We are running a civil society organization. I mean, that englobes, that brings the youth together, that empowers the youth. It is not everybody that has that initiative, even as a PhD. Everybody is looking, I mean, like Fayon says, that politique du ventre means that the politics of the stomach. Everybody wants to feed the stomach, only his stomach and his family. And that's why you find people embezzling. When you get the matricule, the final thing is that within 1 year you have embezzled, and we only talk about big sums of money. This is what is happening. But it is not lost. What we are saying is that we should get back down to the source. Our educational system should be retailored. I mean, we should have, I mean, that practicum, internships, that industries, laboratories that accompany the theories that we have. We cannot go looking, I mean, condemning the top when we know that the down is leaking. The down is actually leaking. And as the down is leaking, these guys find themselves wanting. If you want them to defend themselves, they will defend themselves. They will tell you, we successfully went through our educational parcours, and I had my PhD. I was awarded this marks. So why do you, if I didn't do or exercise exactly what I was supposed to do as a student or as a researcher, it's no more my fault. So, but I think anybody who goes for PhD thesis and research goes out of his own will, because there is nothing like sitting most often in class to you apart from the seminars. And I think that if you accept to go for PhD, it is because you have really identified a problem in a society to solve. It may not really be a problem that actually is close to you to solve. It may be a problem of the country, of a nation, of a continent, or a global problem. And some people take upon themselves subjects that do not directly touch the environment. I've seen some people who go to research on things that are not even concerned about Cameroon, but things that are concerned about people in Europe and America. So in that case, now those people come here, they are wanting. So the only place they can be useful is over there. And that is why we say, look at your immediate environment and be able to see how you can build. But is there a political will? We really need the support. You need the development. The government needs to come in terms of this to be able to assist that. If you have a research project, the government should be able to assist you. We have been talking about this.
Yes, but whatever may have been said here, there are some PhDs who are distinguishing themselves on the field.
That is very true, Mr. Liu. What we are struggling to say here is not that we are downplaying the weight of the PhD itself. We are looking at what the PhD can offer to the society. Having a PhD that cannot solve a problem in a society makes you rather a liability. I want to think that even if we go round and round and round, as we are sensitizing and educating our younger ones to better equip their minds to know what they actually want, that is what we call education for purpose, we must equally agree that the government has the lead finally. Even if you were to set up a company in this country today, where you have to set up that company, and the taxes that are supposed to be paid will still be determined by the government. If you were to open a farm, a plantation, how many hectares of land are you going to cover at the end of the day will still be determined by some of these government officials. So I want to think that the government still has a very big role to play, to facilitate, to also motivate, as Dr. Ndimancho is saying, because a government that does not motivate its citizens, a government that trains or that produces unemployed youths or unemployed civilians is a government that is producing only people to fight back the government. So I want to think that the government still has a role to play. In as much as I keep blaming the PhDs or whosoever, I think the government has a role to play. For those who have distinguished themselves, who have actually served the community and the society as the thinking tanks of the nation, because there are some of them who actually submit proposals without calling a name. I followed one on my Media Prime on the program 90 Minutes in Africa, who is actually an advisor to the president of, I don't know whether it's Gabon. When a question by one of your journalists was put to him, why is it that you go solving problems in another country, whereas your country is suffering from similar problems? He said he has submitted to the competent authorities of this country severally, and he has never been called up. So his services are not needed in his homeland. Which means it's just like they say Jesus Christ was not needed in his homeland. So I'm saying this just as an example, like Dr. Ndimancho said a while ago. There are some of them who may have that zeal, that love, that patriotism. They will write projects, lofty ones, beautiful ones, that can push the nation forward. They will present it to this government that we know. And you will understand that it is a government that will take them, put in their lockers for 26 or 27 years as they put the decentralization program in the cupboard, which was proposed by some opposition parties in this country. So in as much as we think that these PhDs, the only advice I can be giving them is that doing a PhD is not a direct employment. When you go in for a PhD program, have something by it that can support you. Don't only think you are going in because the government must take you. That said, I think if they go by this, they would have solved a problem first for themselves and avoid a situation where they will go down to the streets as beggars. Because what they are actually doing in Ewane now are beggars. I equally know some of them that actually if you present them somewhere and you say these are PhD holders, you may be lynched in the public. Because just what comes out of their mouth, just their presentation in the first place tells you that they are not qualified to be one. There are some of them we don't even know whether actually they went through. And those are some of the charlatans who will come out and be hanging on the government's neck every day that they want a job. You asked a question here a while ago to Dr. Ndimancho. I did not get the clear answer. In which field are these PhDs actually fit to be recruited by the government?
They are writing their thesis now. I don't know. Do you defend in the air? You have your subject written. So in all of the fields, I mean, people define individually.
Yes, it comes back to what we were saying, that it remains on theory. Because if we were to go in practice with the numerous problems that he cited here, the Anglophone problem, the flood, the also these PhDs would have fashioned a solution soon.
But what stop? Let's even assume that you have been making submissions to government and they are not taking it. What stops them to invade all radio stations and TV stations?
Blow their alarm.
To tell the community that please, this flood like this, or this Anglophone crisis, this is.
Are you minimizing what I'm doing on my media?
No.
Yeah, of course.
Not you.
Collective effort.
No, we are not talking about you, doctor. Everybody, every Cameroonian follows and listens to you. You are not part of those who are in Yaoundé, except you are telling us that
we don't have an association.
Except you are telling us
there's no association.
In the night you join them in Yaoundé. You are not part of them. Yes. What stops the PhDs to stop talking in bars that we are? I'm doctor this. I'm not. Why don't they come and share this great knowledge that they have acquired with the community to tell them to help solve health, educational. All of these problems.
The issue in Cameroon is that we have PhD who are sitting on their shelves and so proud about what they think they are, but cannot give out to the society. I'll give an example, the Anglophone crisis. We have a lot of doctors of history. I'm talking about even professors who are teaching history. But it will shock you that when you contact them to come on panel and explain to the public, give the real lecture so that the public can make an informed analysis or informed opinion about what they are saying, they will tell you that they are not coming. And when it comes also to political issues, the PhD who are crying about political issues that they need employment, they are well educated to canvass for vote for the masses. Yet they don't go enter into these political issues to make their voices heard. They allow those who don't have PhD, who probably don't even have master's degree, to be their municipal councillors, to lead them in their municipality, and they still go around beg for jobs. You still ask a question, why don't they come out? Look like a floating boya. We are counting 1 week. Saturday will be 1 week. We have not had let's say
a doctor
in that domain in Boya even visiting the site and give a press conference to say that okay, based on what we observe, we have seen this and we keep seeing this happening in other countries, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Ghana. You see PhD researcher will come out,
all of them they are always analyzing,
like
telling
this, yes,
this
is what is happening. But
where
in Cameroon,
PhDs?
They will grumble that you bring only one particular people on panel and only one particular on panel, and when you ask them to come and talk, you say no, I don't want to come and talk. I don't want to come and talk. This is who they are. That's why they cannot have jobs. That's why they even sometimes I doubt most of the knowledge that they do give, because if you are unable to come on the public space and make your voice heard and to explain your policy and explain your theory, it means that you will be unable to even explain this in class, and that is just been normal. Keep aside Anglophone crisis. Let's look at the structures and the development we need in Cameroon right now. If we look at some of the new innovations have come from people who don't actually have PhDs, who are people who learn on the job. That's why you see, a while ago I said I'm doing a research on the effect of in-service training on employees' performance, because it has a great role to play in terms of how people are formed. People believe that they must go to school and have the PhD. No, sometimes you don't need to have the PhD. And there's also a myth here that I want to counter. When Ndiwum talked about Kaji Difoso and Dawara and the rest, there is something we should understand as far as academy is concerned. If you have done a particular job for more than 15 years, you are given an honorary PhD. It means that you are a master in that domain. It means you are specialized in that domain. And you are conferred an honorary PhD, which means they call you a doctor of that thing that you are doing. Right, like footballers. No, excuse me. They submitted their thesis based on the activities that they are working on. That's why the academia gives room for that. The academia understand that there are people who can learn on the job. There are people who can learn on the job and practice this for a longer time. That's why you see footballers are given honorary PhD because they have played football for far too long and have mastered the art of football. And so therefore the academy will recognize their achievement. I'm talking this under the cover of Dr. Ndimancho. If I may be wrong, he will correct me. But if you look at all this context, we are saying here that these PhD holders in Cameroon, as we speak right now, need to go to do what is known as an added value. Added value simply means a part of what you study. What else can you do? Let's say, for example, there are no universities, too much university for you to teach. What else can you do? You should involve in research. And again, Mr. Kum, I go back that it's a shared responsibility. The government needs to diversify. When the government diversify, create also an avenue. The fact that most others have succeeded in this same academic structure, it doesn't mean that all will succeed. But we are saying that let us look at the proportion of those who succeed as opposed to the proportion of those who don't succeed. They will know that there is a problem. There's a problem in terms of what we are doing. So we cannot be doing one thing over and over again and we expect a different result. I want to laud all those who are having handwork, who are doing handwork, who are making their jobs and who are not PhD holders. But that let us also not refuse the fact that there's also a responsibility where the government can act as a catalyst to assist those who cannot be able to do the other side but can be able to do this other one. Okay. Both of it contribute to the GDP of the nation.
Jarvis, thank you. We are ending this program at this juncture. Keep the votes coming. We want to know which is the best private university in Cameroon according to our viewers. Many of you are voting for the Catholic University Institute of Boya. Some are saying it is IUG in Douala. Others say it is Imad University. Some are voting for the ICT University in Yaoundé. Keep the votes coming. Thank you, Doctor, for coming today.
Thanks so much, Mr. Liu. And just to conclude by saying that don't feel bad. The media should not feel bad that most of these PhDs don't come on. You know, we live in a kind of an autocratic country whereby people are afraid of the unknown. They don't want to slip off their tongues. Even some of us, when we are recruited by the government, if we are coming on panels, we cease coming to take part in debates, and that is understood. So we live in a country that is very, very complicated. So we may not blame them for not always coming on air. If you want to test, go to most of these public universities and ask some doctors teaching there to come on air. They never want to come because of the fear of the unknown. Somebody will want to slip off the tongue and say something that you'll be queried tomorrow. So, and it is very common in an autocratic government. So we just hope that we are going to have freedom of speech, especially freedom that is for the good of the society, that people can be able to talk freely to give solutions to the problems of society.
Thank you very much, and also to you, Ndiwum. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. I just wish to encourage, like Tah Mai has raised a very important point, because we cannot depend on people as experts, and when the need arises that we are in need of the expertise, they disappear and they come out crying. I want to think that they should take the bulls by the horn, come to the TV sets, empower the population with this knowledge. Like Dr. Ndimancho said, it's also a source of wisdom. Share this wisdom, share this knowledge, give us solutions, let the community benefit from them. They should not keep the knowledge to themselves.
Thank you, Jarvis, for coming.
Thank you very much, and a special good evening to the Bishop of Boya, Chancellor, Pro-Chancellor of the Catholic University of Boya, and Professor Victor Julius Ngo. There we have been trying to make the students to understand that it's not all about seeking for job, but training job creators at the Catholic University of Boya.
Okay, this one says, why are you not reading my messages? There were so many messages. Let me read yours. Greetings to you all. To the best of my knowledge, a PhD holder in search of a job from government did not actually study. How can you have such a PhD instead of creating jobs opportunity? You are looking for a job. Lazarus is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Lazarus. Thank you all for watching this evening. Eli and Desmond, thank you. And to you, Tabi, Tambe Bryant, we say stay blessed.
Amen.
Bye-bye from us.